Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, join me, Rob McConnell, as together we'll investigate the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology here on the X-Zone Radio TV show on XZBN and the X-Zone TV channel on Simul TV. Since 1990, the X-Zone Radio TV show has been the place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. Together, we'll investigate UFOs, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, psychic phenomenon, lake monsters, conspiracy theories, government cover-ups, the truth embargo, alien abductions, ESP, haunted locations from around the world, and so much more. With over 28 years of broadcasting and more than 4,500 individual guests, the X-Zone is truly a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality, as evidenced by the credibility, integrity, and professionalism of the guests that we bring to our international audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Welcome back to another episode of Cal's Corner radio show here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network. My name is Kal Korff and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is, of course, Rob McConnell. Folks, as I say again at the top of every show, people who listen to the show regularly know this. The purpose of the show is to cover everything from politics to the paranormal. That's a lot of subjects in between those two, let's say, pillars, for lack of a better term, or endpoints here. Of course, we can't get to everything in one show. It's not possible. We couldn't even get to everything if you lived to be as long as Methuselah. But we give it our shot, and hopefully by the end of each show, we've discussed things that hopefully make sense and will be of interest to you. So let's pick up from where we left off 2 weeks ago. I want to start by saying I'm sorry I was not able to be here last week, but I had a really off-the-wall thing happen, which I'll just share with you briefly. Basically, I got the bright idea to follow the advice of people down at court who told me to go to various places regarding some legal cases that I'm involved with. No, I'm not the recipient of any legal action. Let's put that right there, the kibosh on that right away. Instead, I'm involved in the opposite end, meaning, of course, going after some people who deserve it. But anyway, make a long story short, what happened is I was told to go to different buildings so I could get certain things done. And the first place I go to, there's no Wi-Fi. It's down. And just my luck, T-Mobile and those guys are installing the next big thing, which is 5G. And something went wrong. And of course, I was on the wrong end of that. Then I went to another building where the court told me I could go to get around that problem. And well, for some reason, they were closed and the left department didn't know what right department was doing. And then they told me to go up to the library because that would solve everything. And then I go there and their computers are down. So it was 1, 2, 3. So what it was supposed to be done, what should have taken a very little period of time, ended up killing the rest of my afternoon. And I had the unfortunate task, if you will, of messaging Rob and telling him and apologizing that I couldn't make it. And it was just one of those things. Now I'm going to compare that to today's day before I came back to the office to do the show. And I started out my day with some surgery, some preventative stuff. First time I'd had it done. But basically, make a long story short, I had a growth under my right bicep for years. And when I was in wonderfully polluted India for 7 years, I worried about this thing becoming literally deadly. because over there your body absorbs all the bad stuff that's out there and it's everywhere. And I'd never had boils or anything like that until I went to India. Just like I indicated before, I'd never had Delhi belly till I was literally in Delhi. There's a reason they call it Delhi belly. You have to go there to experience, to appreciate what I'm saying. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody. It's just not nice. So it was time to take care of this. That way, everything should be okay. So nothing like starting your day off with surgery. And then, of course, I went back to court to try to complete some stuff that I couldn't get done a week earlier. I got most of it done, and I'll be back next week because I have to take a holiday on Monday, of course, to finish it. And I'm excited about it because it's a slam dunk and long overdue. Anyway, I'll talk about it later once I have the ruling and the court papers and stuff. In the meantime, let me switch to another court action that I have firsthand information of. In fact, inside information of. I have a very good news update for a story that Rob and this show broke last year regarding Robert Kiviat, the famed Fox producer from Alien Autopsies, the show that he had done years ago for Fox and a lot of different Fox specials. He's a longtime friend of mine. Rob knows him as well, of course. In fact, Rob had his mother on one of his shows. I didn't catch that episode, but small world. Anyway, make a long story short, Bob Kiviat had sued basically Congressman Daniel Marriott, yes, of the Marriott hotel chain family, and of course Joe Firmage, and the famed Silicon Valley entrepreneur who is involved. There's no question. He's known about this. You can Google this in techno scams. That's the only way to put it. The man claims he's got some anti-gravity device, and it has never really existed. In fact, we know the provenance of this machine he's been working on to do this breakthrough. It was a piece of Russian junk that was sold to him and imported apparently by Hal Puthoff. Yes, the Hal Puthoff, Mr. Uri Geller, whatever, Scientologist, whatever, involved in TTSA and all that other wonderfulness. So again, it's a small circle of guys who've been doing this type of thing for years, decades, in fact. And as two article exposés that I wrote that were published last year gave the inside story on this impending action. And what they first tried to do, folks, was change the venue. They didn't want the trial to be in Southern California, of course, because it's not their home turf where they can engage in other kinds of activities that it's up to them to explain. Instead, they tried to have the venue changed to Salt Lake City, Utah. How convenient. Of course, in Salt Lake City, Utah, there is a lot of corruption because, let's be blunt, the state is owned essentially by the Mormon Church. That's the way it is, folks. And I'm going to share with you a firsthand observation of this that I saw when I was doing World's Greatest Hoaxes, Secrets Finally Revealed, for Fox and Bob Kiviat. And I will remind some people that that show was the only show on TV as of that time that took out the top paranormal mysteries. That was Billy Meyer. You say, well, what's new on that? You'd taken him out years earlier. Yeah, that's true. On another Fox show, Encounters, where I debated Jim Delatoso, and you can watch the tape yourself, he lost, just like he lost when I beat him on Art Bell, according to the credibility poll of the live audience of over 2,000 people who voted. They said I won the debate by, a margin of 85%. Art said that was unprecedented. Well, thank you, Art. I appreciate that. And yes, that debate is part of history, and you'll have a hard time finding it online because pro-Art Bell people just don't like that show out there. I'll just leave it at that. But anyway, you can't undo real history because real history matters. All you can do is either lie or deny about it, which of course is wrong, but that's out there. In fact, I'd like to thank a certain researcher whose name I won't mention yet. I'll do it in a few months from now because we're going to be working on an expose project that will become public later, for sending me the actual 3.5-hour debate. I hadn't heard it since I beat Delatoso in the late 1990s. And I haven't really talked about him because I kept a promise that once he admitted that there was fraud committed, and he admits this on the show. Even Art Bell says, Jim, that's fraud, and Jim admits it to his credit. I said I wouldn't, continue this. There was no point. Once somebody says, okay, I surrender, I admit it, or whatever, you got to move on. And everything's been fine on that front. I went off and got a life, as they say, and just quit dealing with it. But what a lot of people don't know is that about maybe a little over 48 hours after that debate, I secretly flew off to Switzerland again to go undercover again inside the Meyer cult for Fox TV this time. And I posed, as I've mentioned on the show before, as a guy named Oscar Mayer Wiener. And knowing how they revere the name Meyer, and they were really excited over the fact my middle name was Meyer. I told them it was a different spelling, though, Meyer. I knew that because they view Billy Meyer as literally a living god, which is ridiculous, even though he says there's no such thing. There's only creation. Again, he's trying to have it both ways. I figured, to keep my sanity and kind of have a sense of humor about this and show how gullible and, I'm sorry, stupid some of these people are who follow Meyer blindly. It doesn't matter whether the photos are proven to be hoaxes. It's the messages of the Pleiadians that matter. Yeah, right. Okay. Anyway, Oscar Mayer Wiener went there. That was me. Before there, I was Steve Thomas years earlier when I did my book, Spaceships of the Pleiades, the Billy Meyer story, which was published by Prometheus Books, endorsed by Stanton Friedman, Walt Andrus, Dr. Jalen Hynek. All their names are in the book and on the back cover and stuff. Anyway, make a long story short, Billy Meyer's wife ratted him out and said, yes, he's like a god there and he's a hoaxer. And I'll never forget the reaction on her face when we showed her the video we brought with us of the dancing girls from the old Dean Martin show. There were the so-called Pleiadians or Pleiarans right there. And you should have seen the look on her face. Oh, man, it was precious. And she was really mad. She was mad because she realized, and I really felt for her because she was an abused woman. I'm being blunt with you. It's not easy living with the leader of a cult. She was shocked that he lied to her as much as he did, meaning completely. She thought maybe there might be a kernel of truth to some of this, but no, when she saw those dancing girls and Dean Martin, it's like, whoa. So anyway, she appeared on camera, held my book up and said, this is the truth. And that was all in the broadcast that Fox put on the air. And again, real history matters. You can't take it out of the record. And of course, the Meyer people are not going to bend over backwards to talk about this. And I felt really bad for her because the reason that we were able to talk to her finally is because she had finally left and escaped from the Billy Meyer UFO cult. What happened is Billy Meyer's one and only daughter, Gilgamesha, was horribly injured in an accident to the point where she needed to be taken care of for the rest of her life. Well, Billy Meyer's too busy, saving the world with bogus Pleiadian messages and making millions of dollars off his scam. So what happened is Calliope Meyer went ahead and started taking care of their daughter. And God bless her for doing it. But it meant giving up essentially what new life she would start as a divorced wife to Billy Meyer. And I felt for her because she was clearly on her own. And the Meyer cult started attacking her when they found out that she had essentially turned evidence against them. And you must remember, it was Calliope Meyer, God bless her, that found and first noticed the garbage can lid that was used to fake the so-called wedding cake pictures. And Jim De La Tosa was on record of saying many years ago that those photos tested as models, quote unquote. Well, no kidding. Anyway, I saw that garbage can lid many times. It's a standard, basically garbage can that people buy over in Europe. It's quite popular. It's everywhere in India. I had to laugh at that. And it's basically the kind of thing where he used it to fake photos. All right, we'll be back after this commercial break.
Patty Conklin grew up in Brooktondale, New York with a unique ability. Unlike others, she could see how the vibration of words and emotions affected the physical body. She discovered how to release stored emotion and facilitate healing. This began today's Conklin method of cellular cleansing. The private practice grew with tremendous results, as did her reputation. More and more people sought her out, bringing her into the home for healing. She soon realized she could even teach this to others, and they could shift perception and thus prevent illness from occurring. Patty Conklin quickly became a frequent keynote speaker, and she developed a curriculum for teaching the Conklin method of cellular cleansing. For more information, visit pattyconklin.com. PattiConklin, PattiConklin.com, or call 404-474-0086. That's 404-474-0086.
Mission Evolution is dedicated to the well-being of the planet and animals, as well as the evolution of humankind. One major factor threatening all three is increasing toxicity. Heavy metals and other environmental toxins are poisoning our bodies, deteriorating our brains, blocking our spiritual connection, and shortening our lives. Yet these poisons are extremely difficult to remove. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, and I recently became aware of a product created from the marriage of nature and nanotechnology called Vitality. It's formulated from zoolite, whose crystalline structure binds toxins, gently carrying them out of the body. The light is only as clear as the window through which it shines. Clear your body, shine your light into the world. Visit vitalityhappens.com for a 20% discount. Enter code PATHHOME.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Welcome back to the second segment here on Kal's Corner Radio Show. My name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. So getting back to World's Greatest Hoaxes and Bob Kiviat, again, Calliope Meyer, Meyer's wife, was put on camera. She was just herself. She wasn't scripted. She wasn't coached. She said what she had to say, and it's a matter of record. And again, real history matters. Now, I mention that because, again, in working for Bob Kiviat on the project, he was documenting what I was doing. One of the trips I made during that production was to Salt Lake City. I went there with a crew, and I met a guy named not Mitt Romney, but Jerry Romney. No relation to Mitt Romney, thankfully. Anyway, make a long story short, he was the insurance salesman that handled A&E Films, which was involved in promoting the Roger Patterson Bigfoot hoax film of 1967. A&E was a large independent film company at that time. They had produced a lot of different documentaries, including The Search for Jesus and so on. They were tied with the Mormon Church, and as a kid watching these Sun chic classic pictures, because they were involved in this as well, I always wondered, they were obviously cheapo productions, how they could get thousands of people in the scenes. That cost money usually. Well, it turns out they were volunteers, as in members of the Mormon Church. And there is a sect in the Mormon Church which believes that Sasquatch, or Bigfoot, is this interdimensional creature that is biblical, meaning that when Cain slew Abel and he was marked and turned dark skin and banished to hell and whatever else they believe in, because I don't believe any of it is true. That's just my opinion, right or wrong. They believe that Bigfoot is this remnant of that past event. Yes, that's really hard to make up something like that, but apparently somebody did. And even Dr. Jeff Meldrum was criticized at that time in the 1990s for not only being a member, but actually endorsing part of that. Then he said he didn't. But, he's kind of moved the goalposts over the years, because even today, if I were to debate him on the issue of whether Bigfoot exists, and there's no evidence it does, and I'm going to be doing an interview about that soon, the fact is that there's no evidence at all that shows any such thing. Or if you think there is evidence that Bigfoot exists, riddle me this. Why is Bigfoot the only creature who doesn't take a dump? He doesn't seem to go to the bathroom anywhere. Nobody has witnessed him taking a whiz anywhere. Nobody has found any DNA evidence near anything. Nobody has found any, corpses or dead remains of any creatures he might eat. Who knows if he's a vegetarian? Maybe he's a meat eater. Maybe he's both. Maybe he's an omnivore. We don't know. You can just make it up because Bigfoot doesn't exist. It's like unicorns. So Bigfoot doesn't leave DNA. He doesn't, his footprints seem to disappear after a while. Even when he's running away from the photographers or walking away, he doesn't seem to show up in any, even microbial DNA is not there. There's no hair samples either. All hair samples that have been said to be of Bigfoot, they've been analyzed. And when they're analyzed by credible labs, key caveat there, folks, nothing is there to show anything. So that is a fact. You can't deny it. Well, you can deny it. People do. There's a whole industry over it. And I'll tell you one thing I wasn't prepared for when I went to Salt Lake City was how it's really two different cities. When I went there, it was so buttoned down that I felt claustrophobic, smothered, like, wow, this town is really, to say it's conservative is an understatement. It's just really kind of weird. I don't know how else to put it. I've never been anywhere else in the world that's like Salt Lake City, Utah, and I am more experienced in traveling than most Americans. Most Americans don't even own a passport. Most Americans have never even seen another country. That's just the way they roll. Me, I've been to 27 over more than 18 years. So we're in Utah, and Jerry Romney was the insurance man who was involved with A&E. He made a lot of money being the insurance guy for that. And we had evidence from Clyde Renke, who was involved in A&E and ran the accounting in the books, that Jerry Romney was somehow involved in the Bigfoot thing. Jerry Romney, ironically, walks very much, almost identical, to what Bob Hieronymus did when he wore that gorilla costume and faked the film with Roger Patterson. And we filmed Jerry Romney walking that way. We filmed what's called B-roll. And basically what I did is I went in there, I contacted Romney, and I said, you were a very good basketball player. You had really long arms. And you were great in defense and so on, but I'm wondering why you never went ahead and made it big in the NBA. So what I did is we talked in his house, in his living room. I met his wife. They laid out a great table. They welcomed us into our home. But then in the middle of the interview, as we began the second roll of tape for TV, I asked him, I cold-cocked him, that's the term they use, about Bigfoot. And boy, did his reaction change. And it was interesting because it wasn't a reaction of, what are you talking about? Why bring this up? Like a person knowing nothing about this would tend to react. If I tell you, hey, didn't I see you in Antarctica last week? Didn't we have a beer? You go, what are you talking about? But no, he didn't have that reaction. Instead, he got defensive, changed his whole demeanor, and all of a sudden he's on the defensive over, I don't believe in Bigfoot, I don't, whatever. Okay, fine. But is it possible that he could have been Bigfoot in a trial run of this hoax, since we know that the film was faked with a conspiracy, meaning they had the deal essentially done to go ahead and bring this to market, and there was an investor, and then they ended up laughing all the way to the bank with this hoax. And these are facts. So because of World's Greatest Hoaxes, we independently found out that it ended up being Bob Hieronymus who had wore that suit. And Bob Hieronymus called Kiviat after he saw the World's Greatest Hoaxes and said, that was me. And then the rest is history. Greg Long wrote his awesome book, The Making of Bigfoot. And you'll see my name on the cover of that. That's not why I'm talking about it, I promise you. I would endorse this book no matter who wrote it, but Greg Long is a very good researcher. The book still stands. And a phenomenon that I encountered, which I'd never, ever thought would exist after that book came out, and we were promoting it, doing interviews and so on, I got to experience what it's like to be on the wrong end or the wrath end of Bigfoot militants. I remember specifically the famous Bigfoot researcher, Mr. Green. You can look up his first name. I'm not going to bother mentioning it. He's no longer alive. He threatened to kill me. I'm not making this up. And this was a surprise because I know my investigations and exposés have upset a lot of people. That's their problem. I'm not going to feel sorry for you if I bust you for hoaxing a UFO thing. That's on you if you have a problem with my exposing you being a hoaxer. I'm doing it for the public. I'm not doing it just for the person I'm not even thinking of them. When Billy Meyer faked his stuff, and I first learned about Meyer through Wendell Stevens, because we were friends back then when I was in high school. That's when I met him, and we exchanged UFO data and knew each other very well. If I expose something and the person that gets exposed has a problem with being exposed, it's their problem. I'm not going to let that fact that they're bothered hold me back. That's just not the way reality works, at least in my world. So what happened is we are in Utah doing all this, and then the sun goes down. We got the footage, and all of a sudden, it was like a different city. I saw in the very hotel we were staying at all kinds of people taking out booze and everything. I even saw women who, let's call them ladies of the night, who were working the hotel. And that's when I had a new appreciation for the phrase Jack Mormon, because my own stepfather, Val, who's no longer alive, he was a Jack Mormon. He was born and raised in that area in Utah and Ogden, but he loved drinking. So he was a Jack Mormon. He told me he loved Jack Daniels. Okay, that's where I learned the term when I was in high school, and my mother married him and so on. So in Utah, and this is why my little tangent here is relevant, I contacted the Salt Lake City Tribune, and I spoke with a senior political editor there, and I'll mention him in the near future if he doesn't come clean. I told him about the story, had him call Kiviat. We handed the expose about Congressman Daniel Marriott from Salt Lake City to him on a silver platter, and then we hear the excuse, oh, we're too busy with so many news stories, we don't have time for this. Yeah, right. Do you think we were born yesterday? So I'm telling this reporter, and I will name him soon in a expose, that you had a chance to tell the people, especially in your own backyard, the truth about this, and for some reason you're just too busy to do so. And the impeachment BS is over, by the way. So what is your excuse this week? I don't know. I'll find out. I've also let this reporter know that I'm in touch with other reporters who are going to be contacting him and saying, what's the problem? We'll take the story. So this is going to get very interesting, because here's what happened in court, folks. And yes, I'm finally getting to the point. Kiviat won. The judge took his side. The case has been reinstated because they lied to the court about settling when it was never true. So the judge said, yeah, it's back on, game on. So that's what happened. It's in the record. It happened in early February. And the next hearing is early March. And then people are going to be subpoenaed. And you should have heard the reaction of the side marrying Congressman Marriott. You mean, he's back named again? Oh, yeah. All right. We'll be back after this commercial break.
Audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Join Patty Conklin and Healing Within Radio each week. More than entertainment, Healing Within offers educational, useful tools for everyday life. Listen for help overcoming fear, anxiety, and depression. Patty knows about eliminating cancer, MS, dementia, Parkinson's, and a host of illnesses that we face every day. Life can be good. Life is good. All you need are simple tools to start changing your life. Start right now by visiting pattyconklin.com, PATTICONKLIN. No matter where you are in the world, you can work with Patty through Skype, phone, or in person, visiting one of her retreats in Georgia. Visit pattyconklin.com today or call our offices at 404-474-0086. That's pattyconklin.com or call 404-474-0086.
Coming soon to the X Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randall, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who would like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandall.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back to the third segment here on Cal's Corner Radio Show. My name is Kal Korff. I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. So Kiviat has won the latest round. He has an undefeated record. Every time they've gone to court, the other side has lost. It's a matter of record. I have the case management file. If anybody questions what I'm saying, they can go get off their you-know-what and go dig it up themselves. It's available publicly, folks. Anyway, they're going back to trial or to the court in March. And this is interesting because what's going to happen is subpoenas are going to be issued now. And not only is Daniel Marriott going to be served on this and put under oath and penalty of perjury, that is so awesome, folks, because imagine being able to hold a politician accountable under penalty of perjury. I love it. All politicians should be held accountable under penalty of perjury. In fact, if I had my way and I was president or could get a law enforced, I would force every politician in the U.S. Congress and Senate to wear what I call a congressional blazer or jacket. And it would be whatever color they want. It can be blue or it can be red. I don't care. It can be rainbow. I don't care. But what I do care, and I would insist to be on each jacket, would be these little patches ranked from top to bottom like medals are on a military guy's chest, where their sponsors, their top 10 lobbyists are on one side, And so when you look at a politician and he's wearing his congressional or Senate jacket representing you, quote unquote, you get to see who's really paying for him. That's the way it should be. That's real transparency, folks. And then you can say, well, you're against, cleaning up the environment. And you've got 5 little patches on your jacket, Senator X, that are all from big energy and fossil fuel industry. What a coincidence. See, it would invite disclosure. But, we won't go there. So anyway, Kiviat has won. The fight is back on. The game is back on. The judge is awesome in the case, and she's made it clear. Here's another key decision she made. She has said that this case will be solved this year. It's not. She has said it's not going to go beyond this year, not at all. So the other side can't even think of any more delay tactics. And then there's another individual who apparently is on his way to being subpoenaed, Ron Pandolfi. Yeah, the CIA's Ron Pandolfi, who has a Pakistani wife who arrived here in a pod from God knows where. You'd have to ask her and him. And now they're in the drone business. Oh, man, you couldn't make this up if you paid a bad Hollywood writer. Anyway, Pandolfi is going to be put, unless there's a sudden change that nobody knows of, under oath and penalty of perjury. And he's going to have to explain to the judge, under oath and penalty of perjury, I love it, his role working with Marriott in this techno scam. And they're claiming, oh, we don't have any money. Yeah, right. Doesn't matter. They're guilty. So we will have resolution, barring something completely unforeseen, this year, which is great for anything in California. And to have a congressman, Firmage, and the guy who ran the CIA's Weird Desk, who has messed, to be polite, with UFO researchers for decades, these people may finally be held accountable. It's just incredible. And it sure beats filing Freedom of Information Act requests. Speaking of which, and again, we'll come back to Kiviat as it develops. I'll give you another update in March. But all the stuff, I'll just end this Kiviat segment here, all the stuff here that I just summarized for you is a follow-up and continuation of what was published initially in the X Chronicles newsletter that Rob publishes. It was in there last year because Rob was the first publication to deal with the Kiviat thing. We did a couple of shows on it on my show here, and this is an update to it. It has moved forward, and this is just an update for you, okay? Because I've been given insider access to this info. All right, let's talk about FOIA now, Freedom of Information Act. There is an article today, or an article out on Popular Mechanics, written by former Police Lieutenant Tim McMillan. I know McMillan. He's a competent investigator. And what he has done is he has been documenting the work that the government has done, the Pentagon studying UFOs. Of course, this is from the Harry Reid ATIP stuff. And then, of course, Kit Green has admitted that they did these tests studying supposed effects of close exposure, of encounters people have had to objects. While this is interesting, it is interesting. The problem I have with all of this is it's still, at the end of the day, not a smoking gun, meaning I, again, am going to remind everybody listening to this, and I'm seeing the reactions to this now on social media, and it's very interesting. I am one of the 4 original Roswell researchers. I was Stanton Friedman's go-to guy on the Hill case, on Roswell, on the Rex Heflin UFO photos from August of 1965. I was the person who went to all the different parties, just like I did with the Hill case and I did with Roswell, to try to reconcile who said what, because both sides couldn't be right. And then I hear in front of me and see in front of me Stanton Friedman and others just, I'm sorry, make stuff up on the fly to try to rationalize these discrepancies. I'll give you one example, which has been a matter of record since the 1990s. Professor Charles Moore, who ran Project Mogul, that was the cause of Roswell. When I interviewed him, I asked him, what was your interactions with for Stanton Friedman? And again, this was published in the 90s. So anybody who says this isn't true is ignoring real history. And again, real history matters. You can't undo it. He said to me that he met Stanton Friedman and Don Berliner at a hotel in Socorro, New Mexico. That's true. He met him because they had run a paper, an ad in the paper, soliciting witnesses to Roswell. That's a very good thing to do. It's a very responsible research thing to do. No problem. So they met. And Moore tells him, hey, it was Mogul. That's it, and I can take it to my house and show you the actual stuff because I still have it. Well, Friedman didn't like that. He was working on a book, Crash at Corona. And as we know from, again, public records, and Kevin Randall, to his credit, has talked about this, I know for a fact that Stanton Friedman tried to interfere with other authors publishing on Roswell, even if they supported what Friedman said. Because Friedman wanted to be, and he told me this when I first met him, one of the first things he did when I met him, and we're talking the first time I went to interview him when I was in 7th grade for my teacher, George Malone, because he made a point to always disagree with me, forcing me to try to prove him wrong. And I would produce, when my teachers did this technique to me, reports that were hundreds of pages long in school. That's just the way I was. So what happened is he tells Friedman it was mogul, essentially get over it, come to my stuff, I can show you, got everything, including showing how that black stuff at the bottom of Major Marcel's feet, which is very visible in all the photos, most of them at least, that is the remains of a mogul balloon train, and it has been in the sun, and it turns black because it starts to break up. The ultraviolet rays from the sun cause this reaction with the balloon that they make. And he went into all of this, and he pointed out in the photos, and it was Bill Moore who gave me the original copies he had, the 8x10s, of the Roswell photos uncropped. I had an immediate problem with them. One of the first things I did with the third original Roswell investigator, Bill Moore and Friedman are the other two, is I called up my friend and I said, look, I've got these photos here, and I think we can read the memo in General Ramey's hands. It's right here, the clear photos from the University of Texas images. And we enlarged it with Al Reed. Al Reed's son is a friend of mine. Al Reed passed away, unfortunately, but he is mentioned again in public records on this. So again, it's part of history I'm recounting, and I'm sorry millennials won't tell you about it, or it's not on Google. But, you know, most of the information in the world will never be on Google, let's be blunt. So we looked at these. I said, this is just balloon debris. And I went to Stan. I said, Stan, come on. And he's like, well, it must have been a debris switch. And he just made it up. Yet the Brigadier General Dubose said there was no debris switch. He said it was bull. And he was interviewed several times. So that's the genesis of that myth. So what happened is I have come forward on this with people. Based on the reactions that I've gotten, I've picked up a lot of Twitter followers since then. Yes, I do have things to say. I've been sitting on this stuff for a long time. People who have known me for a long time, like Rob McConnell, know this actually isn't new news. But because I was out of the field for years, getting a so-called real life, I really walked away from it in the year 2000 when I moved to Europe. I had more important things to think about. I had gotten married, and I wanted to start a family, and I just had nothing else to say. Roswell, Betty Hill, Meyer, Bob Lazar. I worked with Stan on that expose. He even put in writing after he endorsed my Meyer book. I can't wait for Kal Korff to, get into Meyer or Bob Lazar, because I remain the only UFO researcher who ever worked at KMI, the very company that Bob says he worked at. And that's why I know Bob Lazar is a fraud, and you can quote me. And there is an expose coming out on that later this year, written with a couple other colleagues of mine. And it even nails George Knapp. I'm sorry, that's long overdue. It shows what he knew and wouldn't tell the public. That's all I'm going to say right now. So we'll come back after this break and we'll wind this show up.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. They are here, and they've been here for thousands of years, making their presence known in the shadows. They might be seen by a lonely motorist on a deserted road late at night, or by a frightened and confused husband in the bedroom he is sharing with his wife. But who are they? What do they want? Why are they here? Perhaps most concerning, has the government been aware of their presence all along? The new book by Ellie Marzulli, UFO Disclosure, the 70-year cover-up exposed, delves into the world of UFOs. Can full disclosure be soon? Order now and receive a free hour and 37-minute DVD on the UFO phenomenon. UFOs are real. Get both the book and the DVD, a $40 value, for only $19.99. To order your book and DVD today, go to lamarzulli.net. That's LAMARZULLI.net.
You have heard of the X Zone? Now watch it on Simul TV, plus 500 video games, live TV channels, free video on demand, worldwide, and more. Does this sound like tomorrow's television? Well, it is, but you can have it today, right now. It is Simul TV. Simul TV offers what the others only wish they could provide. 15 exclusive channels like X Zone, sci-fi, and horror. We are worldwide. No other provider offers that. 500 built-in video games. No need to have an extra expensive system. We have them included. Free video on demand. Live streaming events from around the world, interactive online network, and much more. Tomorrow's TV today. Simul TV. Sound too good to be true? Well, it's not. You can have Simul TV today. Sign up at simultv.com. Do it today.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Did you expect your business to flourish, but instead it plateaued or didn't get off the ground yet? Would you like to achieve massive goals and discover new sources of income within your business? When you're ready to experience that type of success with fast results, Cindy Hendricks is the business coach for you. Her work with entrepreneurs and business owners has been life-changing. To get you and your business where you want to be, go to imaginemoresuccess.com.
Has the fear of public speaking stalled your business or personal life? What would you give to develop and maintain supreme confidence? Have an invaluable private program to always perform at your best. Imagine how you would feel. You can have all that and so much more today with Thomas Hides' life-changing course called Number One Fear Unleashed. Visit numberonefear.com and be liberated from your fear of public speaking.
Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on Kal's Corner Radio Show on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Once again, my name is Kal Korff, and I'm your host. The executive producer of the show is Rob McConnell. Boy, this one went by really fast. All right, as we wind this down here, there is a method to my madness, as always. I am, again, one of the 4 original Roswell researchers. So what I'm going to do is break this down as to why this is relevant to all the wonderful work that even John Greenwald is doing at the Black Vault, Tim McMillan and others. They're trying to get to the truth. God bless them for it. And they should be commended and supported for doing that. Now, here's why all of this is important. If Roswell really happened anywhere near the scenario that everybody from Richard Dolan to Kevin Randall to others have claimed and written about and have earned a living from, in part, let's be blunt, then think about it. An alien spaceship crashes on Earth, lands in the USA, of course over the July 4th weekend, because aliens are patriotic. They love America. And what happened is what? The remains were found. Let's say alien bodies weren't found. It was some sort of unmanned alien spacecraft. Well, right there, it would give whole new meaning to the phrase, Houston, we have a problem, meaning the U.S. government would, of course, cover it up, as they should, meaning they need to find out, okay, if they got here, they're a threat, because we just started jet propulsion thanks to capturing Nazi technology and winning World War II. Otherwise, Hitler would have had it all. And we have atomic bombs. What are we going to do? Nuke aliens? We don't know. If something from another planet got here, and it was more than just a meteorite, and even meteorites can be a problem, just ask the dinosaurs, what happens is the whole government would have to be reconstructed in a way where it would deal with this. Now, it would do it in one of two ways. There would be a secret reorganization, which means the public wouldn't know about it. And of course, if there was, this was a Cold War, it was just starting, Stalin and Russia were working on the nuclear bomb. They had not developed it yet. And that's why Mogul was created and launched. It was done under the umbrella New York University Balloon Project. It wasn't called Let's Go Spy on Stalin Project. And Professor Moore made it very clear that he didn't even know the name of his own project. That's how classified it was. And there are people saying, well, there was a reference to Mogul here, so it wasn't really classified. That's nonsense. It had an official rating of A1, equal to the Manhattan Project of World War II. And if anybody thinks nobody knew that we were working on an atomic bomb, even though they may not have known it was called the Manhattan Project and that it took most of the energy that the U.S. would output to do the R&D that we would generate as a nation, there were, of course, some leaks. In fact, there had to be, because that's how Russia found out about the Manhattan Project and were able to spy on it, because they learned about it. So the argument that, well, Mogul wasn't really, that secret because we know about it and there was some reference to it back then, that is a straw man argument that is just completely irrelevant. The fact is, it remained classified. It was classified for decades. And the government, being the U.S. government, didn't hold a press conference and say, oh, by the way, remember that flying disc that the Roswell Army Airfield announced, because they had an eager beaver PR officer named Walter Haut, who, of course, changed the story before he died and suddenly talked about seeing aliens so he could make some money and leave his kids something when he died. That's what really happened, folks. That was us. No, they didn't do that because they don't care. You see, the government does not bend over backwards to say, oh, remember when we lied to you about this? Well, here's the documents proving we lied. Please forgive us, folks. They don't do that. Instead, it's kicking and screaming. You have to pry documents out of them. And of course, they quit using the letters UFO in government documents many years ago because they figured out that if they use other words, then they can, with a straight face, say, nope, we searched records for UFOs and we don't find any references to them. Sorry, no response, no responsive, match. Well, that's because you're looking for the wrong thing. So we have unidentified aerial phenomenon, we have unidentified aerial objects, we have unknown phenomenon. But as we know from decades of watching this, and I know this because I've followed this for years, I was involved in the early stuff in the 70s to get the first documents out of the CIA. In fact, I was in high school when I first started a formal relationship with the CIA, and we got off on the wrong foot, and it's my fault. To this day, if that letter ever surfaces, and I hope it will, I called them every name in the book, used the F word a lot, and because the CIA denied to me to give me their whole case file on the Miami 1952 Ralph Mayer film that was taken in July that showed an object going by about 7,500 miles an hour. and there was no known object that could go at that speed. And this was a reporter who filmed it on the top of the roof of his TV station. It was seen by a lot of people, and they said they didn't have any such records. So I wrote him a blistering foul-mouthed letter, teenage arrogance and all, but I had it backed up factually. And I told him, I not only know you have it, I've got 5 frames from this film, and I know the name of the agent from the CIA, you guys, who handled this case. Well, about a month goes by, I hear nothing. I'm actually thinking maybe I'm going to be arrested or whatever, because the letter was probably the most angry one I'd ever written to them. I held nothing back. I got a very polite letter from the CIA about, 4-6 weeks later, and they agreed to give me a couple of the files, but not all of them. Well, decades later, I now know why. Because it was a classified missile launch that we did off the coast of Florida. Didn't tell Walter Cronkite it was going on. So everyone reported a UFO. UFO does mean unidentified flying object. And in this case, this missile went about 7,500 miles an hour, faster than anything made at the time. And it was classified. So that case was solved. Another case that was solved was the famous NSA memo that Stanton Friedman used to hold up that was all blacked out and say, see, they're covering this up. Well, yeah, they were. But what were they covering up? Well, you'd never know from Stanton Friedman. It was Phil Klass, a mutual acquaintance and friend of ours, who later, many years later, submitted a request to have the documents Friedman would hold up and complain that there was a cosmic Watergate going on. He had them declassified, unredacted, and what they were covering up, which Friedman didn't really talk about, was listening stations and intelligence gathering sources around the world. And if that had been revealed, it would have put those agents and those assets in danger. So yeah, they blacked it out. There were no dead aliens, no dead alien bodies. And that's what I keep coming back to. Because when I walked away from the UFO field in 2000, after my book, The Roswell UFO Crash, What They Don't Want You to Know, which exposes all the claims in the top 22 books that were ever written on the subject by all the researchers, including Friedman, I learned when I started getting involved with the Israelis in counterintelligence and counterterrorism work, working as an analyst, and as it's now becoming publicly aware, maybe soon officially in court documents that will be released, an intelligence officer, I was shocked to see that Mossad doesn't spend any time on UFOs. And I'm like, wow, they're the bad guys. I mean, badass guys. Nobody is better than Mossad. They are the bomb on intelligence. And if their spies aren't stealing the Roswell files and sneaking off slides of alien autopsies or spending any time on UFOs at all, well, there must not really be something to spend time on. Think about that, because there's no way Mossad would not be all over it. It would be impossible to have scientists reverse engineer anything in physics, medicine, chemistry, all that stuff without coming across Jews, because they dominate the Nobel Prizes in the physical sciences, medical sciences. Come on, this is Israel. They have more Silicon Valley startups than Silicon Valley itself does, just in Tel Aviv. Do the math. But it's not there. So all these people are trying to get to the cosmic Watergate. Riddle me this, and this is why this is the last chapter in the upcoming Annie Jacobson expose book that I've written with Rob McConnell. Real history matters. If Roswell didn't happen, it doesn't matter what Annie Jacobson says that Mengele and Stalin supposedly did about Roswell, because it never happened. Secondly, why is Mossad not interested in UFOs? Why? Well, I've had that view that until Mossad cares, I'm not going to either. I'm not going to spend my time looking for alien visitors. What I do is I investigate cases, and I try to separate fact from fiction, and I'm releasing a bunch of stuff now that has been hidden in archives for decades. Some of it, we thought the material was lost, but it's coming out, and it destroys a lot of the major cases. And this can be verified. It will all be on Google, so that in the near future, starting this year, the year of 2020, seeing clearly, right? Good metaphor. People are going to Google, and in the top 10 for once, you'll find out the truth about Meyer instead of only what Mikey Horn says. You'll find out the truth about Roswell instead of only what Richard Dolan is hyping. It's all going to be there, chapter and verse. I held an event called Real Disclosure, because it's real disclosure, folks. Late last year, October 19th, last year, said these cases are going to be taken down. I showed these graphs. I sent hundreds of these slides from the presentation to other people who have shows, like Steve Cambian. I sent them to Erica Lukes from UFO Confidential. It's coming out there, folks, and there's no way to put this genie back in the bottle. And no, a lot of this stuff isn't on Google. It's on there now, starting to, because I've bothered to post it, because it needs to come out. So I support the work of John Greenwald, of Macmillan. Let's get to the truth of all that stuff. But people need to focus on why Mossad doesn't give a rip about UFOs, because that is a showstopper. All right, we'll be back next week for another episode. Thanks for joining me. I'm Kal Korff.